Rob, it is absolutely wonderful to have you here today. Welcome to UCAN Group. I have been so excited to get on this call with you today and have this, well, we say interview, but it's really a discussion between us around the topic of coaching. So to introduce myself, I'm David Grieve. I am the Managing Director and Certified High Performance Coach for UCAN Group, where we work with individuals, entrepreneurs, business owners, executives and athletes, really focus on their performance potential and overall happiness, whether it be in relationships, career, or their business building. Now, the reason I've asked you on, Rob, is because you have got a great background story in your growth over the last decade. I think the first time we connected was just short of a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago, and I got, in the same community we were in for the online business, and I got to know a lot of your backstory. So I am really excited to hear what your thoughts are on coaching, where coaching has helped you in the past, Rob, and your journey. So if you wouldn't mind, I would love for you to introduce yourself, Rob, to the audience, anybody that's listening, to get to know you in a few minutes.
Yeah, sure. It's good to be here, David. We got it in the end. I know we've had issues in getting together this past week or so due to family commitments and things like that. So I'm Rob Sewell. I've been coaching for about 2 years now. Previously, I worked in corporate environments and academic environments for 20 years. Fulfilled childhood dreams of becoming a scientist. Did that for 10 years. Ended up not being for me. Drifted into corporate sales and marketing, chasing flexible working hours, money, climbing corporate ladders, and found that definitely wasn't for me either.
Yeah. Sorry, Rob, how was it transitioning from, I don't imagine there's many people say that, transitioning from being scientist to corporate sales?
The sales that I went into was life science sales. So I knew the customer because I used to be the customer. To be honest with you, David, my hand was forced because at that time there were significant family changes that happened. My son's mother had left when he was very young, just before he was 2 years old. So I was living in London alone, no family, in a one-bedroom apartment, working 12 to 14 hours a day. I was paying more in childcare costs than I was making as a salary, and it just wasn't sustainable. So actually, my hand was forced. I went into something. I needed more money, more flexible working hours, and a free car. Out of London, because I was sick of it, and I lived in the city, London. So my hand was forced. So I was, and initially I liked it. It was new, but it really drove me into the ground and almost to insanity in the end. So yeah, again, it wasn't a choice.
Yeah,
it was one of these things that you do in life that wasn't a choice. It was just my hand was forced.
Yeah, and then from corporate sales into coaching, is that the sort of transition from there?
It was from scientist to sales and marketing to alcoholic and drug addict to unemployment to recovery to online business to coaching.
Oh, what a journey! So, this is all in a 10-year span, or is this longer than 10 years?
Scientist was for 10 years, and then the other stuff was, I was 10 years as a corporate sales and marketing, and then it's been 3.5 years since.
Yeah, well, what a change in trajectory over the last couple of years. I mean, certainly since I got to know you as well, even in this last year, your trajectory has really changed.
It's been huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you come on as a guest speaker in the private community group, we'll talk more about the challenges in the earlier part and getting that business. But if we look at this last decade, then becoming a coach, what sort of coaching you had or been involved in over the last decade that's helped you get to where you are today?
It's been huge. I've had what you might call mentorship, in sales and marketing, some really good, some really bad. but as you said, this last 3.5 years where, you know, I've struggled with addiction, come through that, you know, I guess, you know, one of the biggest influence on my life there would be 12-step fellowships like Alcoholics Anonymous and Cocaine Anonymous, and the mentoring and coaching that I've had through that, actually, and which I now provide to people, you know, who are in addiction as well. Coming into the same community as you did about learning how to build a business online, you know, I started to invest in coaching now. And this is what actually really changed things for me.
Yeah.
I've invested in significant number of coaches.
Yeah.
You know, anything from changing mindset, finding purpose, coaching around sales, coaching around performance, a whole number of things, coaching around health. You know, I've invested in, I currently have a health coach, who's finally helping me to lose weight in a good way, in a responsible way, very slowly, very surely.
Well, you're looking great for it. You look really healthy.
Yeah, I've lost around about sort of 8 or 9 kilos now.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. And that program's not been running for that long, has it? I think you mentioned, is it just a few weeks now?
It's a couple of months now, but it's really slowly losing weight.
Yeah.
But actually focusing, you see, the coaching comes in to focus on health or what I really want.
Yeah.
Rather than just losing weight.
Yes. It's the lifestyle change for the longer term rather than the quick.
Correct, exactly. And it's all around, a lot of it's around mindset. It's not just about eating the right foods or doing the exercise.
Yeah, not just about that. But you said there you've had good coaches and bad coaches. I was going to ask you about, you know, generally your experiences. So could you, no need to name names, but could you paint a picture of what a not so good coach looked like for you?
So a not so good coach or mentor, to me, looks like someone who isn't trying to find the best in you. Someone who is perhaps even coaching, it's teaching, it's projecting what they know onto you, and telling you to do things. It's not coaching. Coaching, you know, if we're talking about for the purist, this is guiding someone toward the answers which are within them, because the answers are within you. It's literally everything is there for you. You just can't see it. Which is why I think as a coach as well, the more you get into coaching, I think the more you need a coach.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You can't see your own BS as well, you know.
Absolutely. In fact, I had a client very recently who was a performance coach for an athletic club in the States. And when we first got talking, it was like, yeah, well, this is what I kind of do. But as we get through, you know, the coaching program that we run, it's like, oh, yeah, this is what I preach. And it's like, yeah, but it's so easy to preach to somebody else, isn't it? But we often don't look at ourselves.
You do it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I've had the same.
I get called out on it with my coaches all the time.
Yeah. And it's great that when you get to a point when you build that relationship. So moving on to what a good coach looks like, for me has certainly been building that relationship and somebody that really gets invested in what the growth plan is and how they get you to start showing up. And for me, it's about the challenging you to dig that little bit deeper and find them. So what would you say has been the best elements of a good coach for you then, in your experience?
I would say, yeah, I mean, carrying on my point before, I think, you know, someone who's very invested in understanding you, not trying to mold you into something, you know, meeting you where you're at, and just getting the best out of you, taking you down your specific, unique path. You know, we're all individuals. There's no one size fits all. You can't push things on people.
Yeah.
Coaching's about helping people to unlock things, to understand their potential, whatever it is. It's just that it's tangible most of the time. There's just something that shifts.
Yeah.
You can help someone to understand that. That's what it is. But then I think here's the thing about what makes a really good coach is it's all about asking the right questions. And asking the questions. Some people may not ask the right questions, or are scared of asking questions. Yeah. A good coach, I think, they ask the questions where others maybe don't ask it. They'll push you further. Yeah. Why is that?
That's right.
Let's get under that, because there's something more to get under, which can just completely change your world.
And that's the challenge, right? That's the challenge for the coach and the coachee. You know, I mean, I know you run your program and you coach people, but for me, when we start off the process, it's like, you know, you need to give me permission to challenge you through this, because that's my job here. Mm-hmm. And without the challenge, we don't dig deeper, do we? It's easy to take a bypass or slip round. It becomes a little bit awkward or difficult, but unless we challenge it, we don't get that growth. So for the coach and the coachee, it's quite important that is established quite early on.
Absolutely, yeah. You have to ask permission, don't you? But this is where that relationship comes in, David. You know, building that relationship, that trust, so that you can really dig deep, open. Because it only works if you're going to be open. As someone if you're going to be coachable, you have to be open.
Absolutely.
You have to leave your ego at the door. You know, you have to prepare that things are going to come up. Resistance is going to come up, and good coach will hopefully ask you the questions to get past that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in all the areas, I know you mentioned that the addiction and the 12 pillars for coming through that I would imagine is a massive, you know, key area and element in your growth over the last decade that's transitioned you. Outside of that, in your business, in your personal development, what area has been the most profound for you in your growth, if you've been engaging with a coach?
I think so. I had a coach or a couple of coaches, and I was on a program. It was a group program. It's probably a couple of years ago now, and you know, this is a program where, you know, these guys have been doing personal development for like 15 years. I went into this with the mindset of, you know, I was just starting out online business. I'm going to crush my business. This is all about crushing my business. This is all about becoming a millionaire. So I went in with this mindset, and there were 6 people on this group call, and very quickly I started to realize just this was nonsense. And I think everyone else was fairly new business owners as well, or fairly new established business owners. They're all thinking about growing. This is why they went into this. It's all, you know, this money mindset. And, you know, within a week or so, we're just all crying about parents, our children. You know, so I went in and said, this stuff started coming up about my mother, and, you know, some stuff that's going on with my son, but my business. And then I turn up the next week. Yep. So it's all about the business, and my mom and my son and my business and my mom. And then it came up, like, I think it was the 3rd week, and it was just like, my mother. And so, but so what started to happen with everyone was having these conversations about all of these things, all of this conditioning. Most of it was parenting. And it was incredible. And even though, you know, my relationship with my mother isn't like broken or really bad, but there's been some resistance there since the age of 14. And I was able to, in a nutshell here, I was able to completely change the relationship with my mother in a 10-minute conversation through something that I learned. Now, why is this important? Well, it's very important in terms of the relationship with my mother, but it made me understand that I literally could change my reality, the way that I see things, by changing my point of view, by reframing things. I could literally change things in front of my eyes, the way that I saw the world. And, you know, when I gave a testimonial to these guys after I'd done this coaching program, I remember what I said was something along the lines of, you know, I'd gone into this thinking that I was going to crush it in my business, but I ended up, you know, spending 3 months crying about my mother and my children and things like that. But what this enabled me to do was it was almost like I had a blank canvas to work with. Cleared all of these things I didn't even realize were there. And it was that gave me the space to then go on. And after I'd done that, you know, everything just started to change in terms of me growing this business. It was remarkable, and I just haven't stopped my growth since then. I think for me, that's the most profound thing. It's often, you know, some of the blocks that we have that are stopping us performing, or you know, building a relationship with someone, or building a business, or whatever it is that, you know, you need help with. You're never going to find those on your own.
No, not at all.
You're never going to find them on your own. And like we said before, you know, even if you're a coach and an established coach, you're still not going to see some of the stuff. Yeah. You need someone to question that and to bring it out of you. So
well, you need that mirror held in front of you, don't you? To really look deep into.
Yeah.
Reflection. I think that's one of the big things that came out for me. My journey is quite different to yours, but similar in some respects. You know, I had all these ideas about how I was progressing and where I was going to be in the next 20 years. And it wasn't until somebody, you know, my coach held it up to me, and it's like, there's a few things we have to work through here. And the trajectory of my path and my business changed drastically within a year. But you're right, there's a lot of things that we go along day to day, and we don't actually realise our impact in our focus, our clarity, our energy, even our courage to actually ask for what it is we want, because sometimes we don't even know what it is we want. We've got an idea, but we don't know how to get there. You know, our productivity, when we talk about building our business and how we move on, all these things really impact us. And the bigger thing for me is our influence. It's very difficult to go out and influence people when we're not, you know, 100% there on our own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for me, I think, you know, one of the biggest things that I learned from that, you know, that interaction or that relationship, my mother, to change that was just literally, I can wake up now and I feel like I have the ability to do anything. I can literally create anything, can influence people, you know, in a good way, you know, not manipulate, you know, lead in terms of leadership and things like that. Just have that confidence and understand that I have the power within to change things. That's David, the biggest thing that I ever learned, I think, was, or that something that was said to me that really resonated with me and really shifted something within me, was in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, when someone said, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And within that, I understood that it was all about taking responsibility.
Yes.
That's where it starts. If you take responsibility, you have the ability to affect change. Now, I didn't know how to do that. Once I'd taken that responsibility to go and look for that, and I had coaching from these two guys, and you know them, there's Guy and Alon.
Yeah.
Wonderful
guys.
Stuff just changed. It was incredible.
Yeah. And that's that for me, you know, if we look at the aspect of coaching, for me was the biggest thing. For me, the Master You and You Can group is about self-responsibility, right? That's the kind of background. But to get that responsibility, we have to create a lot of awareness, don't we?
Yes.
And before we're even aware of where we need to take more ownership or responsibility, sometimes we need that guidance and somebody to point out and say, right, okay, yeah, you know, your wife, but what about you? You know, and I've never had a bad relationship with my wife, but I needed somebody to turn around and say, yeah, but where were you in that situation? And it's like,
absolutely. So it's all about taking responsibility, and you know, and this is coming from someone who took no responsibility. You know, I became lost, and you know, my way of dealing with things was to drink, drugs, or to work harder, or to look for something outside of myself. A lot of blame going on, and it got me to a position where I just completely became stuck in my life. It was responsibility that allowed me to start to make a change. Absolutely. Without that, there's nothing, right?
Yeah. And then so that transition, that initial, recheck in, where am I going to go? Then that growth, the trajectory changes now that you can take more control back, which I think is one of the biggest ways to feel freedom. Freedom's a large word, isn't it? Right? And it's used quite wildly, I believe. But for me, feeling the control is what gives me the feeling of freedom. Because I'm in more control of what's going on. So you feel freer to be doing the things that you really want to do when you've got that control. But it's difficult to have the control if you're not really responsible for where you are and aware of the things that are going to impact it, like relationships with our parents or our siblings or our partners or our children or however that looks. But we always have that responsibility to show up. And I think that for me, like you, was one of the biggest things that I learned from the coaching, and I still, I'm a coach and I get coached, same like you. But when you, after that massive transition, then did you start to hone in on specific areas? Because you've went into coaching, right? And it's came out that you've worked on an area that you didn't actually enter to work on. Did you then start to hone in on specific areas, purposefully, to then get coaching on these areas? Or was that a sort of growth period as well?
So from there, I did actually start to get, and still continue to get, coaching more around strategy and business. But fairly recently, as I was talking to you before we came on here, I've invested in a health coach, and that was a couple of months ago, because it's 6 years now since I've been what I would consider to be healthy, certainly in terms of my weight. And it's almost the last thing that I'm struggling with. Everything else in life is kind of good, and I'm managing very well. Yeah, there's something that's eluding me there, and it's still for me. I'm constantly getting called out on stuff all the time, but I am progressing because I have a different, again, my mindset's been changed around health.
Yeah,
this really means to me, it's not about losing weight. I'm starting to be driven by what I really want, and someone's helping me to understand that.
Would you put that down to understanding what the transformation looks like regardless of what specific area you get in the coaching? Would you put down your commitment to the coaching and honing in these specific areas down to the fact that you've already experienced that transformation that comes through the process?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's that thing that I talked about around my mother. Literally, it's almost changed every aspect of my life. Like, I can literally just do anything. I can change anything. Almost feel like a magician or something. But yeah, there's an understanding of what's possible. Yeah, actually, for me, I'm still a little bit perplexed on why it's not working with my health. There's still something there that I'm holding on to. There's still some mental constructs that I'm not getting past, that aren't giving me the results that I want. Which is why I'm getting help on it. But I know I'm starting to see results.
Yes.
I know it works.
Yeah.
I know these people understand what they're doing.
So that's a good point. That's a good point that you raised, that you understand that the people that you've engaged with, they know what they're doing. Well, two questions for you before we move on. Just, I hope you don't mind me asking, the initial coaching that you took, when you worked through relationships with your mum, and if you don't mind me asking, what was the cost of that coaching?
I think that was about $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah.
I think it was I think it might have been £4,000, something like that.
Right. And the reason I'm asking you is
for 3 months group
program. 3 months, yeah. The reason I'm asking you is a lot of people feel that the cost of coaching is quite significant. Yeah. and this is just fact, and sometimes it is quite significant. But if you look at the cost of what you paid for that coaching and the transformation that you've came through, and how that's, you know, improved your relationships, giving you that kickstart, giving you the blank sheet to just say, right, okay, now we're going to go. I mean, what value would you put on that coaching today?
Well, I attribute. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of other different things and a lot of different coaching and mentors that I've had.
Yeah.
And there was a whole lot more that went into that coaching, right? But that particular thing around my mother, for instance, that is instrumental in me now growing a multiple six-figure business.
Yeah.
So where does £3,000-4,000 stand in that? It's peanuts to me.
Absolutely.
Not belittling that that's not a lot of money, but also the freedom. Again, the freedom that it gives me, freedom for me, I think, is starting to mean like the ability to create things, just to wake up and to be able to create a new program in my business or something like that. I feel very free with that. To not be taking drugs and alcohol anymore, to not being stuck in my life, to, you know, having an understanding that this is the way that life has to be, and I have to work in a corporate world in a job that I don't like. The mind boggles, David.
Yeah. And I think you're an inspiration, Rob, because having got to know you over the last, you know, I think it's over 12 months, but we'll say 12 months, and your growth even in that short period, but knowing what your story was before that, transitioning from a dark place, right, to now running a multi-six-figure pound company is just fantastic. And what gets me is the elements that come progressively through the journey with different people, different coaches, mentors, is what really helps us move forward. And that's where I resonate a lot, because that's what I required in my life, not just in my career shift or the business I was going to do, but in my relationships, so that they blossomed and got better and communication is better and we get a totally different lease of life out of this. In fact, that was something that came back to me yesterday. It's a new lease of life, almost having taken that control back and making the direction where we want to go. So that for me, the significance of the cost really becomes insignificant upon the transformation. And the reason I asked you about, it's quite difficult to see that if you haven't experienced it.
It is. Well, and it is an interesting point. So recently, as I said, a couple of months ago, I invested in a health coach. You know, the testimonials are evident and out there. The results that this person and his team get for people. And I got on a call with him because I was interested. I've been watching him for a year, and I've been putting it off. And I got on a call with him, and so he called me, and it was like about £6,000, and I just went. My whole body was like, and but I looked at the results that he was getting for people. I looked at the results that I've got for myself, and I got out my credit card.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I was actually looking at the weight that I was at, and you know, at the age of 46, understanding that I definitely could be dead in a year or 10 years. I mean, just, you know, time could be up if I continue to live like this.
Yeah.
And I do want overall health in my life, so it's a no-brainer. I mean, would I not pay £6,000 to live a bit longer? Yeah, I think so. But it's understanding the transformations there. And to be honest with you, you know, I can get that result if I exercise every day and I eat well. I don't even need to pay anything for it, right? But the whole point is, David, I can't do that. I understand that I can't do that. And if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I'm going to help someone who knows what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And if I am invested and I am committed, I know that I will get the results because I know someone can help me.
Yeah. And that was a good point that somebody else that we had on for one of these discussions brought up, was about the cost and what the cost brings to the table. The investment, the personal investment, but also the fact that the person who's coaching you, if it's a good coach, right, is also invested because they understand value, what you're paying. Value might become insignificant down the line, but that is the value at that point in time, and that's what they're getting paid for. And a good coach is only paid for good results.
It's the result, it's the transformation. A lot of people kind of start to look, well, how much is that an hour? It doesn't mean anything. It's now, what are you going to get out of this?
Exactly. And I think that's the big question: is what do you want to get out of this? What is it? The end goal? Where do you want to be? What's the result? What's the achievement? What's the process? What it is you're working on? So, what would you say to somebody then, Rob? Or what would you say to somebody to look for in a coach? Say somebody decided they were going to go for it, right, and they were going to work on their health or their business or their relationships. What would you advise them to look for in a coach?
Well, obviously, you know, you can research someone on social media or websites, things like that, and look for results and look for testimonials, of course. And you should look for that, of course, as well. You know, you want to see valuable testimonials, particularly on video. When you engage with someone, you can do this before you even speak to them, of course. Again, you know, if you're in someone's Facebook group or something like that, I believe that you should be looking for someone who is offering a lot of value, sharing a lot of value, not just giving you surface level stuff, sharing you a lot of value, and speaking towards exactly what the problem is that you have. Make sure that that's happening. When you speak to somebody, I think you've got to be looking for someone who is interested in the result that you want in your life. And is committed to helping you get that. Again, not someone who's going to say, well, yeah, we can do this, and this. It doesn't matter. You want someone who is really understanding you. I think, you know, when you feel understood, something magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's an element in there as well. If you feel like you're getting sold or convinced, or you know, there's persuasion in sales, right? But then there's persuasion and you really need to do this. And I think that gut feeling comes up. And I think for anybody who feels that it's almost a force on, and the gut starts to think, I'm getting pulled in a different direction here, I think that's a good sign that you're maybe not connecting with the right person.
Absolutely. A coach should never have to convince or influence someone to use their services or their coaching. You know, your role as a coach is simply to help people understand what you do.
Absolutely.
And to invite them.
Absolutely.
And that's it. You know, the decision is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the big things. I think a lot of people are sold down an alley too often for not necessarily reasons. Yeah. So what would you then say to somebody if going out and finding you know, these elements to look out for, and I would highly recommend that they just phone up and get the conversation, because any coaching establishment worth their salt would offer, you know, free consultation to give you a good feel for it. And I think that gives you a good indication of what the sort of direction would look like. But if somebody was really on the fence of even making that decision to go and find somebody, what would you say to that?
For me, I would look at, you know, where are you right now in your life? What is it that you actually really want? And if what you're doing at the moment is not leading you towards what you truly want in your life, you know, you understand that there's a change that's required. You know, you need to start looking further down the line in your life. Look down the road 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, doing what you're doing, future pacing that. Where are you actually going to end up? Do you understand that it's not going to give you what you want. You only get one shot at this life as who you are. So it's just coming to an understanding. It's a true understanding, and being brutally honest with yourself. Are you prepared to do that?
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of us for years and years and years and years will be. Well, I'm just talking to myself here. I always coach myself. You know, years and years and years just doing the same thing and expecting something else to happen. It's always like willing it, something else to happen, something else change outside of me to make this thing happen that I want. It's ridiculous sometimes when you look back.
Well, it's the definition of insanity.
It's completely, but I've so done that in my life, you know, for many, many years in the past, and still up until now, with health, right? It's just coming to that understanding that you have to make a change. Again, it's like, okay, I might have to reach out for a coach, and maybe I should be reaching out for a coach, but you have to understand that when you get into a position with a coach is going to help you, but you're doing everything. It's all about you. It's all about you having that change. Yeah. Just if anyone and you need to make a change in your life, take responsibility right now.
Absolutely.
It's the only piece of advice that I can give you. Are you prepared? I mean, for some people, you have to go so far down a route before you just say, look, enough is enough. I have to understand that I need to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely.
You then make that change.
And you made a great point there. And at the end of the day, that becomes a question of, am I willing to make a change? How badly do I want the change, and what does it look like? Because one of the best pieces of advice that I got was exactly what you just said there, was to look and project my life 10, 20 years down the line. And Rob, I did not like what I saw. I did not like what I saw. I didn't like the path that I was on, you know, from an external point of view, you know, wealthy and everything was going well. But I did not like where I saw myself sitting in life. And that was the best piece of advice that I got. That was what changed a lot of my thought processes and got me on the path to really getting some help and mentorship and coaching to change my trajectory. I think that's great. I think it's important that every individual on this planet goes through a portion of their life or all of their life repeatedly doing the same thing. And it is a definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, but expecting different results.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't change, there is no change.
Exactly.
Rob, one last question, because I know you've got a call straight after this, and I'll need to push on as well. What would you hope to get out of this for anybody watching, Rob?
Sorry, say that again, David, because it just slightly cut out then.
Oh, sorry. What would you hope to get out of this interview for anybody watching?
I very much hope, and I felt it then when I was sharing, as we said before. So I have this deep, ultra, for want of a better word, thing. It's not a thing coming through me. Pass on a message that it's time to take responsibility to create a change in your life. You know, for me, words like finding new direction, very powerful for me, but understanding that you have to take responsibility to affect that change. And if you want a new direction in your life to do that, I understand that because I've been stuck there myself. And for me, it's just something that anytime I share anything with anyone, there's a message there that needs to come through me, I think, because I hope that just resonates with one person. You just need one person.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm looking right into the camera now and I'm speaking to whoever this is resonating with right now, if everyone else it isn't, that's not a problem. I always feel that there's someone that I can connect with, and that's what it would be. It's just to affect that change. It's time to take responsibility.
And we both share that, Rob.
That's job done.
We both share that. If there's one thing that came out of this interview and all of these calls for me, It's that one person hears the one thing that changes the trajectory that they're on for the better. Absolutely. And that's
job done, you know?
Absolutely. That might be just making a decision that changes it. It might be reaching out to somebody. It might be reaching out to you. It might be reaching out to me. That doesn't matter to me, as long as that one person gets that message that they're supposed to receive that changes the trajectory, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about meeting people where they're at on their journey. You know, we've got lots of different programs and everything, but it's about the methods and the techniques that we use, but also getting somebody at that right time in their journey to change that trajectory and get them on the right path to whatever it is they want to be. Rob, I have nothing but gratitude for you showing up today. You're a great sport, Rob. I was so excited to have you here. You haven't let me down. You're fantastic. You're such an inspiration. I'm really looking forward to getting you in the private group, the UCAN Group Network. As a guest speaker. We'll sort the date out for that after the call. For anybody that's interested in the group, I'll put the link in the chat. I'll also put a link for Rob in the chat if anybody wants to reach out to Rob. He's doing lots of really great things, business coaching, but he's also helping lots of different people. All I've got to say is thank you, Rob. I wish you all the best, and I'll speak to you very soon about the guest speaker.
Thanks, David. Speak soon.
Bye for now.